Hello and welcome back to Deep Pulls. This is episode 9 of the fun and informative Magic the Gathering pack opening series. We are going towards 69 consecutive days here, so we've got basically 2 months left. Right now we're going to look at one of the currently existing standard sets, and that is Ikoria, the Lair of Behemoths. We've not yet looked at this one, but there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. So let's go ahead and open this up and take a look at what we've got inside. Okay, first things first. We've got Pyroceratops. This is, interestingly enough, a near reprint of a Shadows over Innistrad card, Pyrohound, which had the same mana cost and base abilities. It was a 2/3 trample, and that one got +1/+1 if you played a +1/+1 counter if you played any instant or sorcery spell. This one kind of ups the ante by going sort of all prowessy on it by including any non-creature spells. They also made this a elemental dinosaur instead of an elemental hound because dinosaurs were in this set. Next things next, we've got this main Serval, that's what it is. It's a cat. It's a 1/4 vigilance creature for 2. I would say the most interesting thing about this is how many of these kind of cheap keyworded creatures they put into this set due to one of the set's main mechanics, Mutate, which cared a lot about kind of grouping things together. So having vigilance on a cheap creature actually was a very great base for your Mutate later on. We've got here Gust of Wind. This card, which is basically, I believe, a Leave in the Dust, which I think was from Ether Revolt, which had the exact same stuff, I think was an instant, and didn't have the little writer about flyers. This little thing, this set cared a lot about keywords. Flying was basically like the blue-white keyword. And it's interesting in this case because that first instance of like it gets cheaper if you have a flyer, I recall happening on Winged Words, which was an M20 card, basically 2 in a blue for a draw 2, but it was only 1 in a blue, cost 1 less, that is, if you controlled a flyer. So here's another version of that. This one costs 2 less. Mutual Destruction. Now here we go again with the kind of keywords that we're looking for here. This one gets upside with Flash. Flash surprisingly got put on black cards here. It's kind of a tertiary in black, I think is the way they want to say it, which means it can appear and can sometimes even be a theme, but it's not one of the main mechanics here. I think of this as Bone Splinters, which was a Shards of Alara card, had basically the same text except for that Flash upside. Pay to black, sacrifice a creature, you destroy a creature. Pretty interesting, pretty good. Now we've got here Fully Grown. There's been a lot of versions of this effect, this kind of get +3/+3 and trample. It's been +3/+3 and trample until end of turn for 1 and a green. It was in various versions, I think, just 2 and a green for +3/+3 and trample until end of turn. I'm thinking of like Awaken the Bear in Khans of Tarkir. I think there are a couple other named versions of this. This upgrades it by giving it a trample counter. These counters were first used, these kind of keyword counters were first in this set, and there's a pretty cool piece of technology that goes with them, and hopefully we'll see that at the end of this pack as well. Now we've got here another of these kind of, we talked about the 1/4 vigilance, the Serval. This is kind of an interesting version of that as well. Just sort of a 1/5 creature. It's meant to be kind of a base for your mutate creatures that can mutate onto non-humans, and maybe you want the 1/5 body. Kind of, you know, most vanilla creatures are kind of unremarkable though. And finally, we're going to see one of those Mutate cards here. In its actually cool kind of full art version here with the comic book style. This is a Dreamtail Heron. Mutate is not spelled out here, so I will try to let you know what it is. It is basically an ability where it's still a normal card. It's still a 3/4 flower for 4 and a blue, which is decent enough. But with the Mutate ability, you can pay 3 and a blue, its Mutate cost, and you can put it either on top of or underneath a non-human creature card. And what you get from that is you basically get to kind of combine their text boxes, and you get to choose the base stats of either the top creature or the bottom creature. So let's say we've got this with the 1/4 here. So with the 1/4 here, what we're looking at is if you put it on top, you'd get it sort of like this. And it would be, you know, a 3/4 vigilance, 3/4 flying vigilance, and you'd get the draw card off the mutate. It would also, most importantly, be a blue creature with 5 mana cost, a 5 mana value, I should say. If you wanted to go the other way with this, like so, you would have a 2 mana value creature that was a 1/4 and a white creature. So mutate played really interestingly, and you can see how it coincides with a lot of those cheap base creatures at non-human here. Blazing Volley, kind of another sort of non-remarkable sort of thing. I believe this is seen playing a few sets. Amonkhet, I believe, was the first set that played it. You know, kind of whatever. Kind of a very, very poor man's Pyroclasm. And Pyroclasm being a spell from Ice Age, 1 in a red, dealt 2 damage to all creatures. Kind of an iconic spell that Magic has iterated on a ton. This is a smaller iteration of that, kind of a downscaling, as opposed to a few different upscalings and upsides it could have. We've also got here a Day Squad Marshal. So this was the kind of other side of Ikoria, which was the human side of Ikoria. You got to have some cool humans that made other humans. Humans could not be mutated onto, but they did get a little bit of upside in terms of you know, some effects in the set, especially at Uncommon, really paired well with humans, pumped humans. So here you get a decently sized creature that also makes another human. So 2 human bodies in 1 common creature. Next things next, we've got this Hornbash Mentor. We talked about how kind of the keyword counters were a big deal in this set. Here's another keyword counter card. But interestingly with this card, one of the other things it does is it actually is kind of a lord that is a creature that sort of pumps all other creatures that share a characteristic. A lord for trample creatures. This was pretty uncommon in Magic's history. This happened quite a bit with flying, actually. The more common keyword abilities are more likely to have them. Off the top of my head, the only other card I can think of that really benefited tramplers in this way was, let's see, Kroza Stonebrow Hero, which was an original Time Spiral. It was a 5 mana Gruul creature that gave attacking, or that when it attacked, it gave your other creatures with trample, or gave all creatures with trample you control +2/+2 until end of turn. So a little bit of like a keyword lord. Most lords are basically around creature types, but this is kind of a keyword version of it. So really interesting. We've also got here the Katera Crystal. It's really hard to remember these. This set's 3 color wedge names. Because those became really iconic off of Khans of Tarkir. But we also get to talk about basically versions of this effect. So this 3 mana Mana Rock, we've seen a lot of, we've talked a lot about these in the 2 mana version, especially when we were doing our Guilds of Ravnica episode, but the 3 mana version that taps for 3 colors first started with Obelisk and Alara. Alara was a shard set, which was the kind of arcs. So if you look at the color wheel on the back, any 3 consecutive is a shard, and any kind of triangle is a wedge. So this is a wedge for the green, blue, red. Those cards, the Obelisk and Shards of Lara, or I should say, just were 3 mana artifacts, and you could tap it for 1 of each color. The Obelisk, which first appeared in Khans of Tarkir, were the first wedge versions of this, and those tap for 1 of each color, and you could also pay 1 of each of the wedge colors, tap and sacrifice it to draw a card. So this upside here is that you can just cycle them. Cycling is a keyword in this set. I think this might be actually the first card with cycling we've seen, but we have another one coming up, so we'll talk about it a little deeper there. Here we go. We've got Boon of the Wishgiver. This is a card with cycling, and cycling is a very big workhorse mechanic for Magic. It's been kind of all over the place. The first appearance of cycling was in the Urza Saga block, and in that set it was literally just every card with cycling had cycling 2, and that was it. They didn't have anything that triggers off of stuff with cycling. They didn't have anything that gave you benefit for having them in your graveyard or gave you triggered effects when they were cycled. So relatively speaking, this is kind of simple and in that same vein, because other sets have iterated in terms of getting bonuses, cards triggering off of cycling, and then the cycling cards themselves having a triggered effect when you cycle them. This is just the classic kind of cycling. It's a situational spell. It's a big 6-mana spell, as you can see here, with a big effect. But it's also got just a simpler effect. So you can pay 6 mana, draw 4, or you can pay a simple mana and just draw a single card. So kind of interesting here. Ooh. Oh boy, it's a companion. This is Lurtree, the Spell Chaser, which has the distinction of being pre-banned in Commander the second it was spoiled, because this card is absolutely perfect in a singleton format. The companion mechanic, which was on 10 different cards in this set, got overpowered immediately. Cards got banned in multiple formats, to the point where they actually had to give power level errata to these cards. So this card you're seeing here is not the card you can play in tournaments. The card you can play in tournaments is this, but the companion ability, you actually have to pay a 3-mana tax first to put it into your hand, at which point it does function as normal. However, you still have to pay that 3 mana first. The original idea was, what if you had a special card with a very restrictive deck building component, but it got to be basically an 8th card in your starting hand. Once they realized those deck building requirements were not as strict as they had feared, this happened. Cards like this happened. This got banned in Commander, and otherwise didn't really get played anywhere else. I played it in a sealed deck once, and the only other place it might have gotten played is in Commander, but that was banned from the start. And then we've got here, Foil Forest. School Foil Forest. Forests were first in Urza's Legacy. How about that? Ooh, a Thornwood Falls. So this is a upside, a little common 2-color land that enters the battlefield tapped. This has the gain 1 life upside. These lands with these exact names, the cycle of 10 of them, were actually also first printed in the Khans of Tarkir block. They were designed to help with the tricolor format that had a lot of emphasis on those wedges like we talked about before. Interestingly enough, though, the first versions of these lands were not in Khans of Tarkir, they were in Zendikar, where the allied versions of these, again, allied being just any 2 colors that are next to each other here on the color wheel, the allied versions got printed at uncommon. And then when they went to Khans of Tarkir, they decided they wanted them for all 10 colors, and so they pushed them to common. So we've seen this card. These cards basically are kind of like almost permanently legal in Standard based on how many times they get printed. As we see in this case, it replaced the normal basic land spot. We got a foil basic land that replaced a common, and then the actual basic land was replaced by this gain land. And finally, we've got a cool, unique token. It is a catbird. Alone in the world, there's a little catbird, and it's a 1/1 flyer. We did not see one of the things I was hoping for, which was a little punch-out card. It's a card that you can punch little tokens out of that represented ability counters. We may see that in the future, but that was a cool piece of technology featured in this set. Well, we got to talk about a lot of fun things, a lot of companion. I'm surprised we got one and we got to talk about it, so I'm really happy about that. All things together, thank you very much again for coming for another episode of Deep Pulls. This has been episode 9 of 69 consecutive, and please join us tomorrow for episode 10. Thank you so much. Have a great day.